Saturday.
Yeah.
Not great, Bob.
No, I think that's a pretty fair assessment. And I think it was a kind of a slap to the face of reality of where things are. I look at the Packers and Badgers seasons. I thought from a parallel standpoint, you had a lot of newness on both. Obviously, Wisconsin, there's a ton more with a whole new system, new coaches, bunch of new players. And I tried to tell y'all in the beginning of the year when everybody was, well, we're going to win all these games and all this offense is going to be star-spangled awesome. And if you recall, the Badgers Outsider was, I don't know if this was in August, but I said, you know what, this is going to be very choppy. There's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days. And obviously, Saturday was a bad day. Mordecai gets hurt, and it was announced today that his thumbs, he had some surgery done on his hand, I guess I want to make sure I specify that, on his hand. So I think this now really resets, I think, the expectation game. And discussing all last week on how disappointing I thought the Packers were. I'm disappointed in the Badgers, but I'm not as surprised, I guess, that we're seeing some of the things we're seeing. I honestly, though, going into the game, I always have a pretty rosy outlook. I really felt like our offense was markedly better than Iowa's. And Iowa's offense stunk, by the way.
Without their starting quarterback themselves.
4 of 14 for 37 yards is what old boy had.
Jimmy Garoppolo-like numbers.
37 yards throwing. And I think LePay and I were talking is the fourth quarter. I said they're going completely Paul Christ here. They are not going to throw the football. I don't think they threw it in the fourth. 4 throws in the entire second half. And give them credit, though. Iowa played to their deal. They did exactly what they do. And the fact that we had no answers offensively was very disappointing, I think, for most of us.
So as the girls and I were driving around and listening to you and Matt LePay on the call, and as the fourth quarter started to play out and it looked bleak, I found myself thinking, is this between – and I understand. Badgers, it's not like they have won the Big Ten West every single year. Packers, it's not like they've been going to the Super Bowl every single year. There have been a few years where there have been tough times. We obviously know what happened last season with the Badgers and with the Packers. But that period last year and now the growing pains that both programs are experiencing now, are we just not used to this and no one really knows how to cope with it? Is that a fair description? Because I have friends who are very frustrated with the Packers, and I have Badger alumni that did allow their expectations to get very high with the arrival of Luke Fickell and allowed their Packers expectations to get very high after how they played in Chicago. And it feels like it's going to be a process on both of those tracks was not heeded as closely as perhaps they should have been.
Yeah, but again, and I said this on Tuesday last week, fans, they don't need to worry about all that. You be a fan. Media folks like you, coaches, you have to kind of understand where you're at. And Matt LaFleur has done a great job of tempering expectations. Luke Fickell has not. That's not been one of his strengths. He has not said, slow down, there's a process here. He's talking about winning. Now, I think we all understand that there's going to be a process with what he's doing as well. And, Jesse, I don't know, did you get that poll in the field that I threw you on Saturday night or Sunday morning?
I haven't yet. I was going to post it today as we get into it today.
Good deal. I do wonder if there's no doubt as fans, we've had so much success. Badgers, Packers, you can look at the Bucks, you can look at all. And that's all part of the deal. That's the expectation game is how you end up determining success, failure, and everything else. That's just the reality of sports. But what was unfortunate the other day was that this wasn't some juggernaut. I don't think anybody – I see somebody put up, Jeff in the 920 puts up about Ohio State. I don't think anybody's thinking we're going to go dominate Ohio State. I don't think anybody's thinking we're beating Michigan or Penn State this year. I just don't think anybody was thinking that. But what we were thinking was if we can just incrementally grow offensively, we'll be so much better than the Big Ten West because their offenses stink. Well, you know what? Our offense wasn't very good on Saturday. Some could say that it stunk. I'm not going to, but some could. And when you factor all that in, you allow yourself to play the type of game that Iowa wants to play. They are doing it. That's what they do. We are trying to get away from that and trying to be more explosive and better on offense, and we weren't. And when you try to go and do something that you're not accustomed to doing regularly, identity-wise, and you play into someone else's hands like we did, the odds are you're going to end up with an L. And that's how I felt like Saturday played out.
All right, let me go back for a second because I do want to get to your poll because when you sent it, I really like it, and we do need to put it in the field. You said that thing about me not being a fan. And I guess my question is, fans can be fans. I get that. But if you have your expectations tempered, then you don't feel the same level of frustration that both those fan bases are feeling. And I feel like my job is to report to the fan base the information they need to keep their expectations realistic so they're not quite as pissed off as they are right now.
Yeah. But with that, you have to be willing to take on the heat that comes with doing that.
Yeah, it's been fun. But again, like you were right in trying to temper expectations for the Badgers. I understand that they have been really disappointing the last couple weeks, but I was trying to do the same thing with Jordan Love and the Packers, and it does feel like I posted that story from Sunday State Journal about, Rodgers' comments, and I had messaged with him for quite a while the other night, and what he had said on McAfee about Love, and Aaron Rodgers was trying to do the RELAX on Jordan's behalf. And the way some folks responded to that story, I'm taken aback that there is an increasing amount of Packers fans who now suddenly have decided, because the 3 games that he's played of most recent vintage have been poor, that now he's not the guy. Like, we went from you and I arguing about whether he's been awesome or just very good, both agreeing, you and I, that he had outperformed our expectations for the first 2 games, to now that there does feel like there is at least a segment of the fan base generating momentum toward this guy stinks.
Yeah,
he's never going to be any good.
Yeah.
And I am trying to help people not ride that wave.
That's not. I don't think that's your job. I think your job is just to report what happens. I don't think you shouldn't.
Right, but isn't that information what allows you to not
people
ride
will take
the wave?
that information how they want, and if they want to feel that way, that's fine. And you know what? Jordan Love goes and plays a great game in Denver. People will ride the wave back up. I do think, and I have not been overly hard on Jordan Love. He's played poorly the last 3 weeks. He played awesome the first 2 games, sans the fourth quarter of Atlanta. I thought he has been, because my expectations were he's going to struggle a lot. He looked like he was in command. He's struggling a lot right now. I still believe that Jordan Love is a very good, competent NFL quarterback. I think that both of these situations, both the Packers and Badgers, couldn't be further away from each other, though. Your coach has been there 5 years. Most of your players understand the system that you're doing. You're asking Jack Nelson, Riley Mahlman, Tanner Bortolini, you're asking all of these guys to do something completely, it is Seinfeld-esque. You're doing oppo of everything that you've ever been taught. It's a totally different world, what they're asking the O-line and the guys to do. It's different. There's going to be more, this is going to be tough. Nobody's asking Jordan Love to do anything differently than what he's done. Now, is he doing it against higher quality competition? Sure. But that's where I think it's different. And from a coaching standpoint, these guys got the players they want. Are the Badgers are going through that process? They've been here 8 months without even having a recruiting class really to speak of yet. A bunch of portals, but not a recruiting class. So that's why I just look at this and say, from a patient standpoint, I have much more patience for red than I do for green and gold. Because A, it's professional versus amateur, and B, we haven't even really gotten started yet on the red side of it. That's where I look at this. And you could say, well, blah, 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 bias, all this other stuff, and maybe.
I'm not going to say bias. I am going to say that their 2 starting tackles are second-year players, so it's not like they've been in the system a long time. We've talked about their skill position players ad nauseum, right? 9 guys that are either rookies or second-year players. Their center is a 2021 draft class. Their right guard is a 2020 draft class. They're the most veteran guy they have playing for them on offense since Aaron Jones hasn't played in a month plus is Elton Jenkins. And 157 snaps in the NFL still makes you a young player. I don't care if you sat behind Aaron Rodgers for those 3 years. So I give them more grace on that. But you're right. It is that. They're professionals. They are paid to produce. College football is different. NIL, forget all that. They're still 18 to 22-year-old kids. I am not comparing the expectations or the demands that should be put on them. I'm just saying that both have a lot of newness, and with newness comes frustration. That's all I'm saying.
It's fair. Yeah, and I think on both sides, I think the big part, especially Packer fans, is that we're not used to this. We're not. And
right.
Even when you look back at 08, I can't gauge what the vibe was outside of the locker room in 08. I don't know if it was the same way where we were riding the wave. I'm sure you could go back. I don't know if Twitter was around then, but you could look at it and say, there are plenty of people that probably said Aaron Rodgers stinks. Let's go. Todd McShay said it. Brian Brown's going to be the new quarterback. Well, okay. There always is going to be that. It's, I guess, just looking at this thing big picture, we need to have realistic goals of what these teams can do. And I still believe the realistic goal for the Green Bay Packers is to be a bubble playoff team. I still believe that, even with all this, because now that you have a week to kind of finally look at what happens in the NFL, Philly loses, San Fran loses. There's so much, I guess, just
mediocrity or worse.
Yes, the NFL is mediocre. There's no juggernaut. There's teams that are better than other teams and on a consistent basis will win. But the beauty of the league is you better just keep improving because you can position yourself. Anyone can get upset. Now, do I think Green Bay can go beat Philly or San Francisco? I don't. Not consistently. Could they win 1 out of 8? They could. And if they do that, they can knock somebody out of a playoff game. So that's where if we believe, and I do believe, that the Wisconsin Badgers are improving. I know Saturday it was not. It was a step back, no question about it. The Packers, if they improve and they get Aaron Jones back this week, Christian Watson's healthier, Romeo Doubs is healthier, as healthy as they can be, and you start piling that up, this team will get better, and that's why I still believe that they could be a playoff team. And I don't think fans should say, well, that's too much of an expectation. No, it's not. Whereas the Wisconsin Badgers, to think that we could beat Ohio State or Michigan on a consistent basis as we're sitting here right now, that is not a realistic goal for our program.
I just want to channel my inner Jim Mora. Playoffs? I just want to win a game against the Denver Broncos this Sunday. Which I have said this to others. I'm not actually going to take off on Monday if they lose. But can you imagine the frustration and angst of the Packers fan base if they lose coming out of a bye against a team as bad as Denver? I hope that
Tell you
does
something. The offense better throw up 24 plus against Denver.
Yeah.